Hi everyone, welcome back to Andy on Crime. In this video I'm going to talk about the sentencing of the Russian spy David Smith, who was sentenced yesterday at the Old Bailey for a number of offences relating to passing information to the Russian authorities. Check it out. David Smith was a security guard at the British Embassy in Berlin, and yesterday, the 17th of February 23, he was sentenced to 13 years and 2 months for spying for Russia. He admitted to passing secret information to the Russian authorities, and he was caught in an undercover sting operation in which fake Russian agents offered him the chance to obtain highly sensitive information. He was charged with 8 counts, contrary to the Official Secrets Act. On count 1, he was sentenced to 6 years and 2 months. And then on counts 2 to 8, he was sentenced to 7 years. And counts 2 to 8 were to run concurrently. Counts 1 is a consecutive term, which resulted in a total of 13 years and 2 months. And there's a couple of interesting things about this case. The first, that the case required what's known as a Newton hearing, which I'll come on to talk about. And secondly, that the sentence awarded was a consecutive sentence on count 1, which is quite unusual. And in the next part of the video, I'm going to talk about a Newton hearing and why the judge came to a determination that he should be awarded a consecutive sentence. So a Newton hearing comes from the case of the Crown and Newton from 1983. And it established the principle that where a defendant pleads guilty to an offence, but does so on a basis which doesn't correlate with the prosecution case, i.e. the prosecution have said that the offence was committed in a certain way, and the defendant admits that they committed the offence but disagrees with the facts of the offence with which they're being sentenced. The judge then has a decision to make, and what the judge is concerned about is, would it make a material difference to the sentence that he would impose? Now, if the answer to that question is no, then the judge can accept the defendant's basis of plea and then sentence on that basis. If the judge disagrees, then he will hold what is known as a Newton hearing, which essentially is a trial on the facts. Now, there's no jury involved, it's purely the judge's determination, but it's run almost like a mini trial where the defendant will give evidence, the prosecution will put forward their evidence, and then the judge will determine whether or not he accepts the defendant's version of events. So that's what happened in this case. And the judge, in his sentencing remarks, came to the conclusion that the defendant was in fact lying in the basis of plea that he had put forward, and therefore he determined that the Newton hearing would be in favour of the prosecution. And the prosecution held the burden, much like in a criminal trial, but he was satisfied so that he was sure that the defendant should be sentenced on the basis that the prosecution had put forward. And the consequence of that is that even when in a criminal case where a defendant pleads guilty at an early opportunity, they're afforded credit for their guilty plea. Normally, if you plead guilty at the first opportunity, you get a third reduction of your sentence. But because of the failure in the Newton hearing of the defendant, the judge reduced his credit from potentially up to a third off to give him 12.5% off his sentence. So when the judge came to his starting point of 15 years, he then applied the credit of 12.5%, which resulted in 13 years and 2 months. What's also interesting in this case is the judge awarded a consecutive sentence. Normally, if it is a course of conduct, a single course of conduct, then the judge will award a sentence for each of the counts on the indictment, but he will do so on a concurrent basis, i.e. that the sentences will run alongside each other. But in this case, the judge referred to the sentencing authorities, which make clear that consecutive sentences are merited in cases such as this, where a single course of conduct is protracted or the behaviour of a defendant is rightly to be regarded as more than one single course of conduct. So on count 1, he determined that this sentence, unlike the other 7 counts on the indictment, was to run consecutively to the other 7 sentences. He came to the decision to award 6 years and 2 months on count 1 and 7 years on counts 2 to 8. So what will happen next in this case? One thing that was highlighted in the judge's sentencing remarks was that it's still not clear whether or not David Smith will serve his sentence in the UK or whether he will serve his sentence in Germany. If he serves his sentence in the UK, he will serve half his sentence, so he'll do approximately 6.5 years in prison before being released on licence for the remainder of his sentence. And if he is to serve his sentence in Germany, then the German rules on early release will apply. Thanks for watching. If you do have any comments on the case of David Smith, please post them down below. If you did like the video, please consider giving it a like. And if you'd like to see more content from my channel, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching. Take care.